I was assigned to talk about, it's my assignment. The first is the question about are Afro-Colombians second-class citizens according to what we see, what we perceive, and the data that is out there, although limited. And looking at it from the perspective of that social and economic condition that we live in Colombia. And I wanted to say that Colombia is only one case, one example of the situation of Afro-descendant and indigenous communities in the region. In terms of Afro-descendants, and you will see when you start looking at Latin America, is that Africa really has an undeniable mark in the history and culture of Latin America, although it's not very well recognized. It's like a secret that people try to keep, and it's difficult really to keep that secret. It's very evident. But more than that is that almost a third of Latin American population is black. Out of 500 million people that live in the region, about 150 million are those of African descent like me. Brazil is a case, almost 70 million Afro-Brazilians. Colombia is a case, almost 12 million Afro-Colombians, 25% of the total population. And this is keeping in mind some challenges that we have in terms of identity, because when you were taught that everything associated with black people is bad, nobody wanted to be associated with that. Or if you want to be associated with that, it's because you are willing to take the sacrifices that means socially. So that's reality. And that reality is now being more visible. So Colombia is a case. So the second point that I wanted to make in the case of Afro-Colombia is that throughout the Western Hemisphere, people of African descent have similar history. And in the case of Colombia, I will start with like coming from the abolition of the institution of slavery in the 19th century to the cultural and territorial rights late in the 20th century and where we are now. Because that history explains some of the social and economic conditions that we are living in today. We cannot analyze the social and economic situation of Latin America in general and Afro-descendant indigenous communities in particularly if you don't look about the implication of that history today. The third point that I wanted to make is how in the particular case of Colombia we are in the crossfire. We are in the middle of an armed conflict, drug trafficking, and that situation is worsening the conditions of Afro-Colombians. But that's similar in many places where Afro-descendants live in the region. If you take favelas in Brazil and you see the huge challenge of gangs and drug trafficking, and you see that we are in, many of our communities are caught in that crossfire. And it's the same situation in other places. In the Caribbean, you will find the same situation, although in Colombia is more evident because of the history of violence. The fourth point that I would like to make is that Afro-Colombians and Afro-descendants in Latin America are making a very important effort to break with the international invisibility it is very difficult to move our social justice agenda inside national boundaries of countries without really being meaningfully connected with other struggles around the world, particularly in this case in the region. And the last point that I want to make is that really, in order to change our conditions and to improve the condition of societies in general in Latin America, it will take effective leadership and strong organizations from the part of minorities, Afro-Colombians and indigenous communities, and also from the part of the rest of society that understand these different experiences. And it's in that framework where we see an important role for organizations like Phelps Stokes and organizations and institutions of higher education like Willard College. Second-class citizens. Colombia is a very important characteristic of Colombia, and I would say Latin America in general, is that we are multicultural and multiracial societies. You cannot deny that, but the history and the structure of power in Latin America, and particularly in Colombia, were developed under the assumption that we were one nation, monolithic, homogeneous, and really trying to look like Caucasians and to be convergence to Europeans. And we were under the denial that these are multicultural and multi-ethnic, multiracial societies. So those who were from minorities were communities that were needed to enter in a process of getting them civilized, and that was the wrong assumption. So Colombia is a beautiful country, and you see some of the pictures that over there in terms of indigenous communities, Afro-descendants, other communities, nature products. You see the people of Colombia is the best resource that we have, and it's multicultural and diversity in the country, and it's a very rich country in terms of natural resources.